and welcome to Broad Expressions. I'm Becky Doubleday. Thanks for joining us to hear from the women in Central Illinois working to help create the best versions of their communities. Today we're joined by Beth Jensen. After 10 years of service on the Peoria City Council, Beth is leaving her position as an at-large councilperson. She originally joined the council by appointment, filling the vacancy left by the death of Gary Sandberg in 2013. Beth came to the Peoria City Council with extensive public service experience, including a role as Assistant Corporation Counsel for the City of Peoria. Beth is an advocate for legal services for the poor, having served on the Illinois Bar Foundation and the Lawyers Trust Fund of Illinois. Both programs raise money to provide grants to legal service organizations and programs throughout the state. She's also served as board president of the Center for Prevention of Abuse and on the board of the Children's Home. Beth, welcome to Broad Expressions. It's an interesting time for you, coming off, you're wrapping up your tenure on the Peoria City Council. What first brought you to the council, and how are you inspired to run for office?
Well, let's see. Well, since actually I was appointed to fill a seat, and when Gary Sandberg died, they asked for applications, and I think 41 people put their name in. And I was selected by the mayor at that time, Jim Artis, and the council to serve. The main reason why I decided to put my name in, I thought I could fill the seat of Gary Sandberg the best because I lived in an older neighborhood. I have lived in an old house on Moss Avenue since I moved here in 1995 with my husband. And I was a long-time advocate for older neighborhoods since my time living in the older neighborhoods, serving as an advocate, being on the Neighborhood Development Commission when it was in existence with the city, and then even as an assistant corporation counsel, I advocated and helped the older neighborhoods. So I was filling that void. I think also I had experience that no one else on the council did as an attorney who primarily represented municipalities now for 30 years, but at that time it had been for 20 years. So I brought that expertise, and having worked for the city of Peoria for 7 years, I had a lot of knowledge and history of the city that many others on the council did not.
You are an attorney by trade. How did that background inform you wanting to serve on the Peoria City Council? It was all those different things too, but those experiences, did you find when you got to the council that, yes, it was good having that knowledge? Sometimes it's just knowing the right questions to ask.
Yeah, I think that that helped me a lot. The entire tenure that I've been on the council, I've been the only attorney. And with my municipal law background, I have represented municipalities like the city. So I was well aware of the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act and things like that a lot of council members get trained on, and the municipal laws. And that also helped me a lot as to what questions to ask. And also the history with the city. I knew things that we had tried in the past that did work, that didn't work, or also best practices. So I think it did give me a leg up, and I certainly have used that experience to be one of those on the council who always asks the right questions, the tough questions. I kind of get teased a lot, but a lot of times if you listen to the council meetings, I've always been, wait a minute, I have a question. Right. I always promoted, asking questions during the council meetings so that the public who were watching or listening to the council meetings could hear what the question was and what the response was and why we were doing things we were doing. I think that's very important. I've always been one of the biggest advocates of open and transparent government, and that was one of my main priorities when I joined the council and when I ran and was elected in the two prior elections in 2015 and 2019. And I continue to do that, but I think I have made an impact on making city government more open and transparent.
Would you consider that one of your legacies or things? What are you most proud of from your time on the council?
And that's hard. I think that's one of the most things I'm proud of. I promoted open and transparent government, public discussion, ensuring everyone had a seat at the table and their voices were heard. I promoted us doing a lot of things that weren't being done with regards to any kind of big project or proposal or development, having public meetings and having input from the citizens before we made those decisions. A couple examples now, before we do big public infrastructure projects, examples are like the intersection at Main and University, the Forest Hill construction up on Allen Road. Anytime we do that now, we have public meetings and invite all the public, publicize it, and get their input before the final plans for the project are done. And I think that's had a real impact on getting citizens engaged and involved. We've also, a number of times, although some of it got put on hold during COVID, we haven't gotten quite back into it as we had, but I pushed and advocated for us to have a more public process with regards to the budget and to have more time. So we began, I think in 2015, through my advocacy, having public meetings several months before we had to start considering the budget. So in the spring, like in April, rather than in October, having public hearings, and we had them in different parts of the city, and we would have city staff there and the city manager and go through what our budget was and what the proposals were. And then the public at those meetings could ask questions, give input, make suggestions. And we also opened up the budget process to people to give more input for an extended period of time online. And then the manager and his staff tallied all that input that they got to help us decide what our priorities should be and how the budget should be handled. And we also created the budget challenge, and that was, and I think, and it still exists, during our budget time, people can go online on the city's website and take the budget challenge, and they actually, through a series of questions and their answers, they can attempt to try to balance our budget. Luckily, the last couple of years, we've had a very healthy budget, and we haven't had to make those tough decisions. But for the majority of the years that I was on the council, we had very difficult budgets.
So would you say not having difficulties these last 2 years, having more stability in the budget, or at least did the things that you were doing to help the process along, do you think that helped in getting to a place where the budget wasn't such a contentious debate period, or was it still a lot of debate going on, but you were just in a better position financially because of other reasons? Yeah, I think
that's a very good question. I mean, honestly, most of it is because we weren't in the financial straits, that we were before. Mm-hmm. We had a healthy budget, so we had more financial stability, so it wasn't as difficult. But I do think doing those exercises all those years helped all the council members see what the long-term projections were, and what we needed to do and how to prioritize things. Of course, we always get that guidance from the city manager and the director of finance, but doing those exercises helped a lot.
Are those things now, are they part of the culture, would you say, now of the council? Would you hope that those things would continue as you were spearheading them before, and you won't be there to spearhead them now, that they will continue?
Yeah, I believe definitely they already are, with regards to all the infrastructure projects. And a lot of that started, within the first couple of years of me being there, and the former director, Michael Rogers, and then Scott Reese. They were real proponents of having these public meetings. And the manager, now that's part of his MO. And I believe, the new mayor, she's a proponent of doing things in an open and transparent manner. And I think it will continue. And if it doesn't, even though I'm not going to be on the council, I will still be around, and I will still use my voice and come to meetings. And, even though I'm going off the council, it doesn't mean I won't be involved. I will.
And you're an at-large council person.
Yes.
Can you explain the difference between a district council person and an at-large, and what your how the roles differ?
Sure. So as an at-large council person, there are 5 of us on the city council, 5 at-large and 5 district council members. As an at-large council member, I represent the entire city. So you can live anywhere in the city and represent the entire city. So you have a different perspective, and all the citizens of the city are your constituents. And so you look at things as a whole, maybe rather than just the interest of one neighborhood or one council district. And I think that's something unique to the city council. A lot of city councils are are all district-wide. Most of them are. Because I do think it's important to have that balance because you have a whole different perspective. And I was unique. When I joined the council, I was the only at-large council person who lived in an older neighborhood. All the rest of the council members lived, the other 3 of them lived in the 5th district and another one lived in the 3rd, but they all lived in in nice new neighborhoods. So not that the older neighborhoods aren't nice, but so that brought it, I thought.
But they need different upkeep.
And I think I've always said in order for the city of Peoria to be strong, all of our neighborhoods need to be strong. The North and the 5th district is very important to our city, but so is the 2nd and 3rd and 1st district. And we need a strong older neighborhoods, a strong downtown, as well as, the far northern, more suburban-like areas to be strong.
What are some issues facing older neighborhoods that people might not expect?
Primarily, the maintenance of the older homes. It takes a lot more investment to maintain an older house and to keep it up. And so, that needs to be taken into consideration when we're considering grants and whether they're needed for older houses. They need investment. We need people to still want to move into the older neighborhoods that are going to invest in their homes and make improvements and stay there. The older neighborhoods, a lot of them are very, transient's kind of the wrong word, but because there are a higher percentage of rental properties, people don't stay in one place. They move around a lot, and there's a lot of turnover in either renters or owners. And when you're not living at a place long term, I think maybe sometimes you may have a tendency to take care of your properties not as well. And then the difficulty is dealing with, we're not anti-landlords or anti-rental properties. Those are important too. And that's part of the reason why I love our neighborhood, because it's very diverse, economically, culturally, racially, in types of homes. But we do need to continue as a council and people in the older neighborhoods, especially, it's good to be organized to make sure that we hold those property owners that are renting them out accountable to keep their properties in good shape.
And how do you do that? Do you do that through regulation and laws on the books kind of things? We have,
and the part of the problem is that the city staff over the years before I got to the council has been cut an unbelievable amount, due to the budget shortfalls. And so they have a lot less inspectors than they did when I worked there from 1995 to 2002 than they do now. And now the code enforcement and the housing inspections are just mainly maintained through complaints. When I was a corporation counsel, I was, primarily the attorney who wrote and got passed the rental inspection ordinance, which set up systematic inspections for non-owner occupied properties. And that the whole purpose of that was because we had done studies and had data that showed that how much deterioration there was and issues and problems in the non-owner occupied properties throughout the city. And so this system was set up so every, I think it was 3 or 4 years, there would be another housing inspection just to make sure it was stayed up to code. And then If it changed ownership, you had to have a rental inspection. Well, all of that it sort of was decimated because they didn't have the staff. They had a whole staff. They had 4 inspectors just dedicated to, I think, rental inspection, or it may have been 8. But they didn't have that anymore when I came back to the city council in 2013 when I joined the council. And I was so surprised because I did not know that. So we've worked hard, and, I have to give the city manager and director, Joe Doolin, the director Doolin has done a lot and, knows that's a priority and has worked very well with what, the little resources he has and the few inspectors. And they do what they can. But I think that needs to continue to be a priority for the council. And I do think, now that we're in better financial times, the council needs to continue to look at funding more inspectors. Now, there may not be a majority on the council who thinks rental inspections should be a priority. Mm-hmm. And I know there's some that may want to get rid of the whole program. So I hope that, the 2 new people coming in I think at least one of them will be a similar voice as I had about the importance of inspections and code enforcement. And I know there's a few other district council members who will continue to advocate for that as well.
Yeah, it's funny, when you say that voice, because, you took over the seat of Gary Sandberg, who was, for people having lived in this community for a long time, he was a very vociferous advocate of inspections and, for the people, for the renters. It's interesting. You've done the same kind of thing. It's the spirit of Gary Sandberg has been passed along.
And I always said that I kind of, and I knew Gary pretty well.
And he worked for the city at one time.
Yeah, he did before I did.
And in inspections or something of that?
Yeah, he did. At that time, it was the planning and development, planning and growth department. But he did. I like to say, I guess I'm sort of like Gary Sandberg, but I do it in a little bit different way. But I ask a lot of tough questions, and but I do it in a much different way, or maybe a little bit different way.
What do you see as some of the challenges and opportunities for the city that either the council is definitely considering or involved in, or maybe should be more involved in helping to push along?
Well, I think, and I don't know if this answers your question, but one of the biggest challenges, I think, for the new city council, and the current city council right now, and the future of the city is the downtown. I think, like a lot of cities throughout the United States since COVID have got hit pretty bad. People are still working remotely. We sort of had a double whammy with the announcement of Caterpillar leaving, and then a couple of years later, and losing the top level management. Those people aren't downtown. And although, thank goodness, OSF has filled that void, and, we're so proud and thrilled that they, made the investment that they have in the downtown and redoing the building and moving all of their administrative offices downtown. But again, then COVID hit in the middle of that being done, and even all the OSF people that were supposed to be downtown working 5 days a week, I believe, are still working remotely. A lot of law firms, all the people I know that work downtown are not down there every day anymore. Mm-hmm. And that, then when there aren't people down there, then there aren't businesses down there. There aren't very many restaurants anymore. I think there may only be a couple. So I'm very concerned about whether or not the city needs a strong, vibrant downtown in order for it to keep going and grow and move forward and to be strong. And so I think that's one of the biggest issues that the city is facing right now. Now, I know we're starting now to get developers now are starting to bite and come back and have interest in the warehouse district. And that's been, a real success and a real plus. The investments that have gone in there and the buildings that have been redone and the residential that's been brought down to the warehouse district, and then, of course, some of the businesses, like our Door Bread is a fantastic business that's on the riverfront that opened up during COVID, and I go there weekly to get my bread, and now it's opening up into a restaurant. But we need all of that to continue, and the city, needs to help do that in any way we can, and to really focus on that. So I'd say investment in building up downtown again is important, and then another thing that's very important is bringing people back to Peoria, or new people to come to Peoria, to move to Peoria, because we've lost people. We continue to do that, and Doug Oberhelman came and gave a presentation. He's been the chairperson of a group that started meeting, I believe, 7 or 8 months ago, and they're going to announce their plan. But they came to the council. The CEOs of all the local businesses have been meeting, and they have worked with the Gilmore Foundation as well as one of the marketing firms in town, and they have come up with a whole marketing plan to get people to come to Peoria. And I think that is crucial. I'm very excited that they've taken this leadership, because this is something I've actually talked about for a couple of years that we need to do. We haven't had the money to do it as a city, so it's very exciting that the CEOs have taken this on, because they see that they need that in order to attract and recruit employees to their businesses. Mm-hmm. We need a strong Peoria, and we need people to want to come and move here. Now, I don't want to be all negative. We do. I live in the old neighborhood in Moss Bradley, and over the last 4 years, we have had a number of people move into our neighborhood from Colorado, California, and they're artists, and they have moved here because we have a strong, vibrant arts community, which is another thing that I've been a huge advocate for since I've been on the council. And they have moved here, bought big old houses that they couldn't afford anywhere else. And because the cost of living is so low here, they've been able to work full-time as an artist and to thrive and not have to do another job and do their art on the side. And it's been a welcoming city for those artists. And they've been thrilled. And a group of them are even doing the art house. It's called a tour of their homes and studios in April. And so that's very exciting. So we do have that happening. So hopefully, in conjunction with this project that the CEOs, or this initiative that they're going to unfold in the next few weeks, we can continue to bring more people to Peoria. And now, one of the good things out of COVID, you can work remotely and work for an employer somewhere else, and live somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And Peoria is attractive because the cost of living is so low. Exactly, and that's always been a great draw for, I always thought, for Peoria. And that comes through, too, when we've been talking on Broad Expressions with people like yourself. You're not a native Peorian who moved here and chose to stay here and make their home here and then work, too, to make the community more vibrant. What brought you to Peoria originally? Well, I always joke and say it was the job, which would have been the assistant corporation counsel position at the city of Peoria. But at the time, I was dating my husband now. At the time, we were dating, and I was up in Chicago, and he was here. So we were commuting for 2.5 years. So this position opened up at the city of Peoria. So I applied for it and got it. So it was, and loved that job. I worked under Glenn Collier, who is now a retired judge. He was one of the best bosses I ever had, a huge mentor. He still is. So that was an incredible experience to come in and be able, to hit the ground running, to be in court all the time, to litigate. And I got to know people so quickly, got involved in the community. I was involved as an advocate for the Center for Prevention of Abuse because I was no longer doing legal services but wanted to still help victims of domestic violence and was able, to become that. I was an advocate for over 10 years, go to the hospitals for domestic violence and sexual assault victims, but could do that, but then also work full-time. We were able to buy a big old house on Moss Avenue that we never would have been able to afford in another city. So it was easy, too, to get involved. I was involved in the Peoria County Bar Association, got on their board quickly, got on the center board quickly, and the neighborhood board, and just got really active. So was great. And then the other thing is, talking about the quality of life in Peoria is so good. Both my husband and I worked 5 minutes from home. And we had, 2 kids, both worked full time. And then, 10 of those years while my kids were growing up, I was also on the city council. But I never missed a soccer game. I never missed a violin performance. I, got to even, be at the Halloween parties and volunteer at the library at the kids' school and really be involved in their lives. But I could, leave work for an hour and go to those things and come back to work. And that was before really remote working. But it was easy to do in a town the size of Peoria because I didn't have that commute. And it really made our lives better, and we had a great life. And I don't think we would have been able to do all that somewhere else.
I absolutely agree. As a working mom, there was a comedian, Royce Elliott, in the late great Royce Elliott in town, who used to, part of his stand-up was a traffic jam in Peoria is 3 cars in a left turn lane. And it's a joke, but it is true. And that, especially if you're from a major metropolitan area and have had to fight traffic, and you had said you'd been working in Chicago. I mean, it's a battle to get to and from every day. And you're right, you just wouldn't have physically had the time to be able to do all of those things because of being in transit.
Yeah.
Being in transit so much.
So, and we loved it. And, there's so much in Peoria, the museum, the symphony. We have, one of the oldest symphonies and best symphonies in the country.
Yeah.
All the arts community, the First Fridays, all of those events, the Rivermen, of course, the bike trails, the Grandview Drive, and all the nature trails, and there's just so much in Peoria.
And the Chief season is starting here,
and all different kinds of, whether you want an old house or a brand new house or something in between. There's lots of choices.
You chose not to run for city council again. What's up next for Beth Jensen?
That's a good question. I'm still trying.
Any big reveals on Broad Expressions?
No, I wish I could give you one.
Okay. Well, when you decide, come back and talk to us.
Still figuring it out. All I can say is, like I said, I will still be involved in the city. I still am. I'm very involved in our neighborhood, and
I cannot see you not being involved.
No, I will be, and again, I won't be quiet. I just got a note this morning from the fire chief thanking me for all the years in my service and that I will be missed around the horseshoe. And I said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll still be around. I will have a voice, and you never know, I could be back."
Well, thank you, Beth.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Becky. This was a lot of fun.
Well, good. I'm sure it is for our listeners as well. So thank you, all of you, for listening to this episode of Broad Expressions. This show is a co-production between me, Becky Doubleday, and WCBU. It's recorded at WCBU's studios on the campus of Bradley University in Peoria. Our theme music comes from Peoria's Emily the Band. The show is edited by Mike Sable. You can find more episodes of Broad Expressions or subscribe to this podcast at wcbu.org/broad.